at our first projection. We are going for the state of Uttarakhand and in the Kumaon region, where you've got
14
seats, 14 seats
yes,
which come from this part of the hill area of Uttarakhand. The BJP here getting 8. Aam Aadmi Party has managed to make inroads with 1. You've got the Congress at 5 and nobody else. Close fight in Kumaon between the Congress and BJP.
The chief ministerial face of the BJP is also from Kumaon. That's Pushkar Singh Dhami. And of course, Harish Rawat is also from Kumaon. And while viewers, the BJP itself is predicting 60 seats out of 70. This number would give it a bit of a reality check. Let's look at the next. Let's look at the next region. Let's open that. Okay, Garhwal region. Garhwal region, viewers, 14-5. Are you surprised?
A little, yes, because, you know, this is for the first time in history that you've had a chief minister of the BJP or a candidate of the BJP who's been from the Kumaon area. So a lot of people had thought, and this is just the little politics that happens in the hills, you know, you want political representation. The Kumaonis always thought they weren't represented enough. So would it put off the Garhwalis? Apparently not, because even here more than 50% of the seats are going to the BJP in the Garhwal area.
19 seats, viewers, from just this particular region. Remember, this is a state where history could be made. If the BJP returns to power, though it has changed two chief ministers, it's been one of the first times, in fact, perhaps the first time, when a government is voted back. So they usually alternate the voters here.
So they're on
every
the cusp
5
of
years.
history in Uttarakhand and in Uttar Pradesh. And makes sense because they were both one state at a time.
And there is also a margin of plus minus 3%. The error margin, not seats, but percentage of votes, which will come to in just a few moments.
So what has happened in the valley, in the Tarai region as it is called, here is where Aam Aadmi Party had given the maximum thrust, but it doesn't seem to have made much of a difference. The 37 seats which come from here, and this is where the Congress has done the best. 21
according
seats
to this
out
projection,
of 37 are going to the Congress
projection.
And 15 are going to the BJP.
Yes, of course, all of this, viewers, is just a projection. These are not final results by any means, but viewers, let's share and overall numbers. So this is the overall seats and the Congress getting 31 according to this projection.
Scraping through.
Just scraping through 37, viewers. Remember that it is, and these of course are consolidated numbers, so 2 above what is required to form a government. Now this is a very close fight.
So which basically means that if we factor in the margin of error, maybe it could be hung assembly, Rahul? It might be.
Well, that's a percentage, so we're not looking at seats. Those plus minus 3 are percentages. We'll have to look at the vote share now, 35.94. So basically the poll seems to suggest a plus minus 3% margin of error. So it could be that the Congress gets about 38% or 39% of the vote, or gets only about 32% of the vote. Here we share. Now this is where the difference is kicking in. The Congress at 35, almost 36% of the vote. The BJP 47% of the vote. There is a significant 11% difference between the two. It tells you, viewers, that the conversion, however, is not according to its liking. So there is obviously many seats where the Congress is winning by students, but certainly winning. The BJP that has an overall vote share which is much higher, then the Congress is not picking up so many seats.
You know, it must be said, and maybe Sabha wants to weigh in on this, if the Congress has managed to get 35% in this projection, it's thanks only to one man, Harish Rawat. It would seem that everything was done to sabotage him, but he's managed to get this.
If the Congress doesn't get what it needs to form a government, it will have to blame the Aam Aadmi Party here. Most of these numbers that we are projecting are from the AAP. So this is the AAP effect. Almost 9% of the vote, and it is directly hitting barring some exceptions, the Congress.
And they're not really winning too many seats, but Aam Aadmi Party has damaged expectedly, but commendable. Harish
Look,
Rawat.
I mean, the BJP, according to this, is a 10% lead over the Congress vote share. So that's a very healthy lead.
And the BJP, of course, will share. We're going to try and get those reactions from the BJP. We're going to connect to the BJP panelists. They will, of course, say that the poll is not giving them the benefit of actually having got a larger vote share, that they were expecting many more seats on the back of that.
Absolutely, Rahul. If the vote share gap is 11%, seat gap will not be 6%. One of these has to be considered, because at 11% it's a sweep. Then it's a massive sweep. So that is why I am
well, let's speak to Pushkar Singh Dhami, who joins us, who is, of course, the Uttarakhand Chief Minister. Padmaja, let's go straight across to him.
Okay.
Now, Pushkar Dhami ji, ये जो number अभी आए हैं हमारे पास, आप देख रहे हैं, narrow win आपको दे रहे हैं, right?
हाँ, पर आपको खुशी इस बात की होगी कि इतना कुछ कहा जा रहा था कि सब कुछ आपको अप्रूव करना है, 2 मुख्यमंत्री बदले गए, थोड़ा सा तो आपको राहत की सांस मिल रही होगी।
हाँ, निश्चित रूप से देखिए, हमारी प्रचंड बहुमत की सरकार बन रही है, इसको लेकर मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूँ और मुझे कोई संदेह नहीं है। उत्तराखंड की जनता ने माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के कामों पर और उनके द्वारा जो उत्तराखंड के कोने कोने तक हर प्रकार की सुविधाएं यहाँ पहुँचाई गई हैं, हर प्रकार का विकास पहुँचाया गया है और हमारी उत्तराखंड की सरकार ने भी लगातार हर क्षेत्र में काम किया है। हाँ, निश्चित रूप से देखिए, हमारी प्रचंड बहुमत की सरकार बन रही है, इसको लेकर मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूँ और मुझे कोई संदेह नहीं है। उत्तराखंड की जनता ने माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के कामों पर और उनके द्वारा जो उत्तराखंड के कोने कोने तक हर प्रकार की सुविधाएं यहाँ पहुँचाई गई हैं, हर प्रकार का विकास पहुँचाया गया है और हमारी उत्तराखंड की सरकार ने भी लगातार हर क्षेत्र में काम किया है।
तो ये बोल रहे हैं,
मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूँ कि हमारी प्रचंड बहुमत की सरकार यहाँ बनेगी।
ओके, आपसे मैं पूछना चाहता हूं कि आपने कितने चीफ मिनिस्टर रिप्लेस किए हैं? 2 और वो भी आपने अपने ड्यूरेशन में, कार्यकाल में ही किए हैं। तो इसका तो ज्यादा फायदा मुझे तो लगता नहीं आपको मिल रहा है, क्योंकि अगर आप देखें तो आप और कांग्रेस के बीच में सीटों पे तो काफी करीबी है।
नहीं, देखिए, हमारे सभी मुख्यमंत्रियों ने अच्छा काम किया, मेरे से पहले वालों ने अच्छा काम किया, उन्हीं कामों को हमने आगे बढ़ाया है और उत्तराखंड की जनता हमेशा उसने जो है ऐसी सरकार चुनी है जो सरकार विकास करे, जो सरकार राष्ट्रवाद के साथ चले और मोदी जी का मंत्र है सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास। उस पर लोगों ने भरोसा किया है और ऐसी सरकार यहाँ पर उत्तराखंड की जनता चुनने जा रही है जो सरकार मोदी जी की सरकार के साथ चले।
पुष्कर जी, आप मोदी जी की बात कर रहे हैं, देख रही हूँ आप वही उत्तराखंड टोपी भी पहने हुए हैं जो मोदी जी ने इस बार पहनी थी 26 जनवरी के दिन। पर लेट्स take a look at the poll of polls. Now we have the poll of polls numbers for Uttarakhand as well, and it is quite close, like we have been saying, Rahul. Here you have the Times Now veto numbers: 37-31 BJP Congress, ETG Research 38-30. They give a wider margin to the BJP. In fact, it's the Maitre's exit poll which gives the Congress a lead.
Yeah, we don't know, of course, who Maitre's is, and we're going to try and get you a bit of a backgrounder on that, but it just shows the reverse happening, doesn't it? Reverse of the Times Now veto poll. Of course, they also have given 2 seats to the AAP here, so that's very interesting. So, you know, this means that the Congress will form the government by 1. They will not need any support, at least on the face of it. But
if we see the poll of polls,
and C voter,
very, very close now.
C voter has given,
yes,
C voter has actually gone a step further, and they've given Congress now the mandate. So there's 2 split polls, viewers. Yes. The Times Now veto seems to suggest that the BJP is going to get the numbers. ETG research also seems to suggest it. But Matri's exit poll and C voter going the other way. In fact, C voter is very damaging to the Congress. Let's get in Tuhin Sinha. Let's go straight across. Tuhin Sinha of the Bharatiya Janata Party, not looking too good for you. 2 polls. It could go either which way.
Script history both in Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh. I think you have been a little conservative in, with a 47% vote share. A 47% vote share would translate into a massive majority. So I am assuming that when the final results come out, it would be 50 plus seats. But one of the reasons why it seems most of the pollsters have been very conservative in giving seats to the BJP in Uttarakhand is because of the, age-old belief that Uttarakhand has seen alternate governments every time. But I think you need to stick your neck out over here. Dhamiji has done an excellent job in the last 1 year. And moreover, Rawatji was missing from action. He was more, in Punjab where, again, he could not handle the situation. So Rawatji is a spent force. Rest assured, with a 47% vote share, we are going to get at least 50 seats in Uttarakhand.
Okay, you are claiming 50 seats. Ganesh Dhondial, who is the Pradesh Congress chief of the Congress, Pradesh Congress chief of Uttarakhand, is joining us. Ganesh ji, दो पोल आपको सरकार बनाते दिखा रहे हैं, 2 पोल बीजेपी को सरकार बनाते दिखा रहे हैं. हमें 2 वजह दे दीजिए कि आपकी सरकार बननी चाहिए. यहां पर बीजेपी कह रही है कि हरीश रावत जी तो उत्तराखंड में दिखाई नहीं दिए, वो पंजाब में इतने मसरूफ थे. क्यों लोग आपको वोट दें? गणेश जी.
देखिए हमें बीजेपी क्या कह रही है इस बात पे नहीं जाना है. हमें उत्तराखंड की जनता पर भरोसा है. पिछले 5 सालों में 2017 के चुनाव के बाद भारतीय जनता पार्टी के केंद्रीय नेताओं ने और प्रदेश के नेताओं ने जो बड़े बड़े जुमले यहां पर आकर गढ़े थे कि डबल इंजन की सरकार होगी, सबका साथ और सबका विश्वास होगा, और उसके बाद यहां मुख्यमंत्री जी अभी जो धामी जी कह रहे थे मैं सुन रहा था, और इनके मंत्रियों ने जो बेहिसाब दौलतें इकट्ठा की है उत्तराखंड की जनता के उम्मीदों पर पैर रखकर, उनकी संभावनाओं को कुचलकर, वो जनता उसका जवाब देगी. मैं आपको यकीन के साथ कह सकता हूं कि आपका चैनल भले ही 31 और 38 का आंकड़ा दिखा रहा है, लेकिन आपको 10 तारीख को भारतीय जनता पार्टी 21 से 24 सीटों के बीच सिमटती हुई नजर आएगी. और
तो दे रहे हैं उनको. पुष्कर धामी जी भी हमारे साथ.
दूसरा चैनल नहीं देखा.
One second, let's just have a look at some of these numbers. These numbers are interesting. Let's just bring in the poll of polls on this wall. Times Now will keep its own poll right here on this wall, but we will definitely go and bring the poll of polls here. Now, viewers, just look at some of these poll of polls. Split halfway. Okay, let's go back here. We are being told that there we are. ETG research, Matri C voter. Big gaps between the two. But the fundamental point here, viewers, is that this could very well be a hung situation.
Yes.
Now, if there is a hung situation, what happens? Let's bring in Preeti Sharma, representing the Aam Aadmi Party. Look, Preeti Sharma, what are we seeing here? We are seeing a very, very bizarre situation where if you look at the average of poll of polls, you have the BJP actually 1 short of majority. You have the Congress at the doorstep. And you have the Aam Aadmi Party 1. Obviously, these numbers could change by 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but not by much, because the general trend seems to suggest that this is not some sort of a wave in favor of the BJP. So, Preeti Sharma Menon, what happens if it comes to AAP playing the kingmaker? Will you sit it out, or will you support? Will you go back to the old formula of the Congress and the AAP that saw a very short-lived government? What would you do?
Thanks, but no, Aam Aadmi Party at present is not contemplating any kind of alliance or any kind of support to either of the parties. I think that we are going to do much better than your poll seems to have predicted. And we're very
obviously,
happy that
the polls are not suggesting that the AAP is going to sweep. So you will perhaps be in a situation to play kingmaker, and that's why we are having this conversation, and that's why the Aam Aadmi Party is integral to this conversation right now.
I think what your poll is suggesting, and which I feel will happen, is that AAP will play the real role of the opposition. I think that we will get more seats than you have anticipated, that the polls have anticipated. We feel that we'll get a decent vote share, and we are very happy that
that's all very well. But Preeti Sharma Memon, this is the question I want to ask you. Fine. Let's say you double, triple, 4 times the number of seats that you're getting. The question is that if you do so, you will be hurting both the other main players. So they will be short of the halfway mark. And if that is indeed the question, then what happens? Will you be prepared to support either the BJP or the Congress? I am actually buttonholing you on this.
I'm telling you very categorically that as of now, our party is not planning to get into an alliance with any other party in Uttarakhand or in anywhere else in India.
All right, so there will be no alliances. Ganesh ji, क्या आपको लगता है आम आदमी पार्टी ने आपको डैमेज किया? Sanjay Jha, Aam Aadmi Party played spoiler for Congress, just managing to be a little short.
Undoubtedly, let me tell you that if Aam Aadmi Party is opening its account in Uttarakhand, one thing is obvious, its vote share has damaged the Congress. I can tell you that if you follow historically the trends, Padmaja, in Uttarakhand, there is an anti-incumbency which is not being captured by these numbers. Tuhin, I think, basically trying to be very sanguine because AAP has actually helped the BJP be in contention for power.
Preeti Sharma Menon.
Sometimes the Congress and people like Sanjay Jha who support the Congress say that we are BJP's B team. And sometimes they say that we are actually against them. So I don't think that that is something to rely on.
No, but look, are you going to... No, hang on. Let's no, very quickly.
Congress does not have any kind of
Preeti ji,
over any vote share.
Preeti ji, look, let's not get into the minutiae of, the vote share, etc. The trend is clear. And the trend is telling us that there is a very large possibility of a hung house. And if there is a hung house, is the AAP going to play a constructive role in trying to respect the mandate and the sentiments of the people? Or are you going to sit it out, forcing perhaps another election? That's the fundamental question I want to ask you.
As of now, I think that your poll shows that we will be in the opposition, so we will play a constructive role as the opposition.
It's a very interesting strategy which has been undertaken by the Aam Aadmi Party, that they are willing to not have an absolute majority, but they are going to make incremental gains. And Punjab could well be the model that they use for that. Ishkaran.
Rahul, in case of a hung assembly, or if there is one or two MLAs, the MLAs may decide on their own whom they want to support. And history has shown the party in centre gets an advantage in a hung assembly, be it any party.
Yes, of course. MLAs always decide on their own very democratically.
When they have one or two.
That's always happened. In Goa, they decided democratically. In Arunachal, they decided democratically. Sabha, which one of these two you think is a more realistic scenario?
I really don't. I mean, I have to say it's so neck and neck that I really cannot stick
You think
my
it's going to be
neck out.
hung by the looks of it?
It looks like it. Look, it can go anywhere. Small swing either way. So we have to wait for this one for the voting day.
All right, let's take a look now at the Goa numbers that are coming in. The other state where you have the Aam Aadmi Party really making a push. They want to leave their footprint beyond Delhi, where they are already in government, Punjab, where they are making gains. Here you've got Goa, where out of a total of 40 seats, all right, again, very, very interesting turnout. It seems to be a day of hung assemblies, possible hung assemblies. The projection is BJP at 14, Congress at 16, Aam Aadmi Party at 4 and others at 6.
What's the common thread? The common thread is the AAP. Now, viewers, we'll have to ask the BJP, we'll have to ask the Congress, we'll have to ask the AAP. Are they going to do business in two states with each other? And perhaps even in Punjab. Who knows? Who knows about Punjab, viewers? We don't know. The AAP is a outright favourite. If you watched all the opinion polls, supposed to be sweeping the state. If it doesn't happen, remember, 8 or 9% depressed turnout. But look at Goa. Goa is going to be a tantalizing, and we know what happened the last time. There was a mad rush for power, and the Congress, that was actually the single largest party, lost out to the BJP. So, we need to get into this conversation. We're going to try also to get to the poll of polls for Goa, but that might happen later.
But this is strange, because Sanjay Jha, your argument was that Aam Aadmi Party plays spoiler for Congress. In Goa, they won 4 seats, but Congress seems to be in majority. So your theory doesn't seem to be really cutting any ice here.
Padmaja, let me tell you why I think the Goa numbers are probably going to be the best numbers for the Congress party. I'll tell you why. The Congress was not just trying to take on the BJP that destroyed it. You see, the Congress was the largest party in 2017, when we all know that in the last 4 years, the BJP cobbled it up through their, Sam Dam Dandbhed politics. But in this election, the TMC was playing the model of trying to say that we will cannibalize the Congress and become the new Congress. The TMC is a non-starter.
Why are we going off on the TMC tangent? Forget the TMC for a few moments. Why are we digressing? Sanjay Jha, we asked you a simple question about the AAP and the fact that your logic was not being borne out by your own by these numbers. So let's just come back to the main question. Forget the TMC. The TMC was never expected to be much of a player.
And they haven't.
And they also built their party around other satraps from the states that had left other political parties, most notably the Congress. So it's quite clear that everyone else seems to have dented the BJP, but it's the Congress that retains.
Okay, here we have the poll of polls of Goa.
And what is very interesting, viewers, as we look at the poll of polls of Goa, is that the Congress in Uttarakhand and in Goa has a bit of a chance, and that is a big story that is being told.
Poll of polls is turning out to be quite an ECG type situation.
Yes.
Again, you've got a gap of just 1 seat over here. You've got an average poll of polls, BJP at 16, Congress at 17, Aam Aadmi Party at 2, and others at 5.
So this is a Jan Ki Baat number, 17 for the BJP, 18 for the Congress. Now, 1 for the AAP there. They're the ones who are giving AAP the least. The others are 4. Now, these could be the allies of certain other party. Remember, the MGP also broke away from the BJP and switch sides to the TMC. Are those MGP numbers? I don't know. We'll have to check that.
No, not just MGP. This will also be Revolutionary Goans.
Okay, there could be
Revolutionary Goans doing fairly.
Okay, Z News.
I think all of them are in others over here. Goa Forward, MGP and Revolutionary Goans.
Z News is very interesting because they seem to suggest that this house is well and truly hung. No one is within 5 seats of forming the government there or approximately there. And then, of course, there's the Times Now veto poll. But in all these scenarios, it is the Congress which is slightly ahead of the BJP, except on the ETG spectrum. So it's the Congress that seems to be sticking to how it did. And Padmaja, you know, before we get into the larger debate, I want to bring in Ishkaran also, Ishkaran Bhandari. It's a fundamental question here that I want to ask you. The Congress is in the race in 2 states like Uttarakhand, as well as, of course, Goa. What does that say? The BJP is hoping for a 4-0, but here the Congress seems to be in the race. So Congress Mukh Bharat, not quite happening right now, at least at the state level.
At least in Goa level, BJP is battling a 10-year anti-incumbency in a state which has historically changed governments even during the government. So in that context, if Congress is not managing to form government, that shows how far they have come behind, and Aam Aadmi Party is doing its own politics, but it is emerging as a force. So the opposition space has many players, but the government space, BJP is managing to retain its vote share of 2017, which was 14 seats. So if you see it in that context, it's an election after 10 years. We should not forget that.
Congress MLA is now going to be put into resorts. Goa has some very nice ones. Uttarakhand also, very picturesque state.
Independents are lucky.
Has some very beautiful resorts. How is this going to change the conversation around the political scene? And I want to go straight across right now to BJP's Tuhin Sinha. You will have to do business with the AAP or one of these parties.
Rahul, in fact, in the last 5 years, the Congress in Goa has suffered multiple setbacks. In fact, it has gone through a process of decimation much the same way that Mayawati had gone in Uttar Pradesh. Yes, in the last 6 months, they have recuperated. They've tried to recoup a bit. But the point is, people in Goa want to go back to the days of majority under, which BJP had under Manohar Parrikar. They have seen the difference we have made to the state in the last 10 years. Goa was a state where, unfortunately, more than 50% of the elected leaders had some sort of a mafia connection. We have minimized that, if not, removed that altogether. We have brought about massive infrastructure development, the connectivity between North and South Goa, the Zuari River Bridge. So they have seen the difference, and despite the anti-incumbency,
you're rightly talking about the infrastructure development, but remember there is also a religion angle that has played out. Several leaders of your party have left, contested as independents, or have decided to go to other parties. There are also allegations of corruption. Mr. Pramod Sawant, in fact, the incumbent chief minister is joining us. So you're not getting a clear majority. And in fact, the Congress seems to be getting a clear majority in poll of polls. What is your assessment? Where did you go wrong?
मेरा कहना है कि इसी के ऊपर भारतीय जनता पार्टी को पूरे मेजॉरिटी की सीट मिल जाएंगे. हमें 20+ सीट मिल रही है डेफिनेटली, कि आपके एग्जिट पोल में चाहे वो 14 सीट दिखाते होंगे, लेकिन हमारा पूरा विश्वास है कि गोवा में हम सरकार बना रहे हैं और भारतीय जनता पार्टी को पूरे मेजोरिटी के साथ जीत रही है।
Okay, let me ask you this question. जावन साहब, देखिए, आप सारे पोल्स को रिजेक्ट कर सकते हैं, मगर जब 5 या 4 पोल हैं जो एक ट्रेंड दिखा रहे हैं तो थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है। तो मैं आपसे एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूं। कई मैस डिफेक्शंस हुए हैं कांग्रेस पार्टी से इस इलेक्शन में। कई लोगों ने बीजेपी को भी ज्वाइन करा है कांग्रेस पार्टी से, बट तभी भी कांग्रेस is outperforming you in at least 3 of these polls, sir, including Times Now's poll. How do you explain this?
मैं इस बार कोई डिफेक्शन की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। कांग्रेस को लग रहा है कि उनको मेजोरिटी मिल रहे हैं, उनके डिफेक्ट होके कोई जा रहे हैं, ये डर तो उनके मन में है, लेकिन भारतीय जनता पार्टी को पूरे मेजोरिटी मिल रही और यही कोई एक आधा दूसरा कम भी एमएलए लगा तो मुझे लगता है कि इंडिपेंडेंट 2-3 एमएलए चुन के आ रहे हैं। सो विद द सपोर्ट ऑफ द इंडिपेंडेंट विल फॉर्म द गवर्नमेंट।
अच्छा, आपको डिफेक्शंस की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, बट किसी से बातचीत तो हो रही होगी? बातचीत तो चलती रहती है, किसी से बात हो रही है? एमजीपी से बात हो रही है?
No, we are not approaching to the any party. We are in touch with those who are the independent candidates, though they might win. So definitely we are very much confident we are getting the majority, and with the support of some independents will form the government.
Padmaja, let me just bring you into this. Now look, let's look at scenarios here. We've had 2 states, and I'm going to put out the poll of polls of Uttarakhand on this side, and we're going to look at the poll of polls of Goa right behind us. What do these poll of polls tell us? Tells us that there are going to be 2 hung houses. What do you think is going to happen next?
You know, one also must remember that these are small states where the number of seats is very less. So just a couple of seats going this way or the other may change the scenario completely. But from the looks of it, the BJP will have a real worry if out of 5 states you end up getting 2 hung assemblies.
P Mark has also come in now in Uttarakhand, viewers. This is P Mark giving BJP 37, the Congress 30, the AAP 2 and the others 1. Now what is very, very interesting, viewers, is that the P Mark is
P Mark
very
has
much
come like a Sanjeevani for the BJP.
It's very much like Times Now and ETG Research. So both these polls, in fact 3 of these polls, giving it to the BJP as the single largest party, the Congress as the number 2 player, but Matriz and C voter going the other way. Now, viewers, this opens up a rich number of possibilities. The point is whether you're going to see the kind of drama that we saw last time governments were formed in Goa, and of course the instability continued in Uttarakhand and Goa. So that's
In fact, let's ask Pramod Sawant only about it, sir. अभी कांग्रेस जो है आम आदमी पार्टी के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, कह रहे थे कि अगर उत्तराखंड की बात है तो उन्होंने डैमेज को। आम आदमी पार्टी के परफॉर्मेंस के बारे में आप गोवा में क्या कहेंगे? कम से कम उन्होंने अपनी छाप तो छोड़ी है।
आई थिंक फॉर द आम आदमी पार्टी उन्हें मैक्सिमम टू मैक्सिमम 1 आधी दूसरी सीट मिल जाएगी, इससे ज्यादा कुछ परफॉर्मेंस उनका नहीं होगा। 1 आधी दूसरी सीट दे माइट विन।
Okay, let's open this up. Let's open this up.
Maybe we should get Preeti Sharma Menon to respond to that.
Yes, exactly. Preeti Sharma Menon. Respond, please.
I think that we've done very well in Goa. I think that we will surprise everybody by our performance. And we've got a considerable amount of vote share. We are the only national party that has been accepted in Goa after the Congress and BJP, which is a big stride. And what I see clearly happening is the same horse trading that we witnessed the last time round in these states. So I think Congress, instead of continuously...
No, but you could end it. You could end it if these numbers hold in Goa. You could easily end it by pledging support to one or the other side. Why become party to it by sitting on the fence and allowing something to fester? I mean, just look at the numbers. This is Goa overall poll of polls, viewers. 4 polls. The average is 16, and that is for the BJP. For the Congress, it's 17. For the AAP, it's 2. And the others, it's 5. Now, these others are significant
actually,
others.
You know, the Aam Aadmi Party may actually just sit back and watch what is happening, because there are many smaller parties who have very easy numbers here. Both these parties just need 3 or 4 to take them past the halfway